hate to pick favorites, but every time we sing that song, there's a sense that I can't shake. And I know you know what I'm talking about. It's a sense of wonder. It's amazement. I'm astounded. I'm confounded. It doesn't make sense to me how the Lord would love me this way. For two reasons. One, I'm acquainted with the man that I was when he found me. As we heard last week in the sermon message, he loved me when I was his enemy. I had hurt him. That was real. I had rejected him, both in terms of ignoring him, which frankly, that coldness may have been worse, more hurtful to him, and also even in anger, in my childish lack of understanding of who he is and what he's doing, accusing him for being cruel to me. And yet, even in that state, that he would suffer so much. And then he still loves me every day. Every day I wake up and there's brand new grace, brand new mercy, brand new favor that I know he sings and he rejoices over me at night. I sleep, but he doesn't have to. He tells me that I'm the center of his attention and that he can't wait to be with me for all eternity. What do you do with that? It's amazing, frankly. I know you're going to think it's because of my height, but that's not why I'm saying this, that our feet even touch the ground. You know, I don't know. And I think that's one of the blessings of getting to sing about those things. I love thinking. I enjoy listening to people teach and hearing preaching and all of those things. But honestly, they don't satisfy, do they? The way that lavishing your love on the Lord does when, I don't know if you feel that sweet release in your hearts. I'm sure that you do. I'm so thankful for that praise. Well, let's turn, if you will, to Matthew 15. I want to start in verse 21. And for those of you who like titles, the title of this sermonette is Great Faith. It's a topic that seems to continue to return to our hearts, that the Lord continues to put on our hearts, and it's important. Maybe this is a slightly different perspective, but it's something that the Lord lit up for me, and I always try to pay attention to that. When he's leading, then I'm confident there's something really good that he's showing me. So let's start in verse 21. This is talking about Jesus. It says, Jesus went away from there, and he withdrew into the district of Tyre and Sidon. Verse 22, and a Canaanite woman from that region came out, and she began to cry out, saying, have mercy on me, Lord, Son of David. My daughter is cruelly demon-possessed. I want to take note of a couple of things already. Number one, look, this is a Canaanite woman. So that's two strikes against her. You understand? Jesus' mission at this time was to the lost sheep of the house of Israel. He made that plain. So what basis did she have for concluding that she should receive favor from him? You understand? The odds are stacked against her, and try to get it from her perspective. I want you to appreciate, I don't know how to say this, so I'm just going to try, the reckless abandon, the desperation that she is showing. This is an open show. This is public, and she is utterly humiliating herself. Why? I mean, what reason, what basis does she have to believe that she would receive favor? She's an outsider. She's not a member of the Commonwealth of Israel. Furthermore, in this time, to be a woman means your testimony is not received in court. You don't own your own property. So for every reason, she should be discouraged from this. But you know what? This is what I want to get from knowing this is that she's past caring about all of that stuff. I mean, we heard it before. I think it was Leonard Ravenhill that said it, and we've heard it from this pulpit, that God doesn't answer prayer. He answers desperate prayer. And I've seen that in the scripture since that time, looking specifically at that, how it moves him. And I know that it moves him when he sees it. This woman doesn't care, frankly. She's past caring. She's so enveloped, engulfed, deluged by this. She can't get away from it. You understand? It produces desperation. Anything. I'll do anything. And no, too, here she is saying, Son of David. Now listen, that's a title reserved for one person only ever in history, Jesus Christ, the Messiah. She recognizes when so many of his countrymen don't know who he is, she's calling out to him. So I just want to point that out here at the onset. She's crying out, "Have mercy on me, Lord, Son of David." She knows who he is. My daughter is cruelly demon-possessed, and it's a cruel state. You could substitute anything in that place, and honestly, it's the condition of everyone who's not well and truly saved, that they are in torment, that they are just being led by the nose, being played like a fiddle by Satan through all of his demonic forces. And we all had our time in that place. We know it's cruel. It is cruel. It's what slavery to Pharaoh was meant to depict. That's what it's like. And even that picture of the way that they would take slaves and put a hook through their nose and drag them around, look, that's sensitive. And you go where it pulls you. And isn't that what it's like? Well, here's that woman's daughter, and she's eaten up with the torment that her daughter's in. And so she doesn't really care what it takes in order for her daughter to receive release. Verse 23, but he didn't answer her a word. And his disciples came and implored him, saying, "Send her away, she keeps shouting at us." So notice first, Jesus doesn't say anything. Are you easily discouraged? Are you easily offended? If so, that is a demonstration of having a very little faith. That's a little faith. What this woman is doing, I know I've been here. I've read David's Psalms. I know that he's been there. I've read what happened with Elijah. I know he's been there. I don't know any faithful servant of the Lord who hasn't been in the place where God just walked by. And he didn't say anything. You didn't get the answer right away. Now, it would be natural, wouldn't it, to maybe be angry, maybe to accuse God, maybe to give up. But there's something important that Jesus is doing with this woman. Does it bring to your mind at all? Do you remember, I think it's Luke 18, where Jesus is actually teaching about what faith looks like and how it will persist in prayer. And it's the story of the importunate widow who comes to the unjust judge, and she's begging, "Please, please, give me protection, give me relief." And the judge doesn't care. He's unjust. So it's way different than the Son of God, Jesus, the Son of David that she's calling out to. He's unjust, but she just keeps on coming. And so finally says, this woman's going to wear me out. I'm going to give her what she wants. And in that part, Jesus is teaching, look, your father is a good father. If you're asking him for bread, he won't give you a stone. You know, if you're asking him for meat, he won't give you a serpent. And he's trying to illustrate, knock and keep knocking, ask and keep asking, seek and keep seeking. That was a parable intended to teach, this is the real life woman. This is really lived out in the flesh in front of him. And she's there in a public place. She recognizes who he is. But notice here, these words are important. I know I'm a word guy, but it matters, okay? Implored him, saying, she keeps shouting at us. That's what I want to get. She's shouting. And the word there, it means to scream, to screech. It is utter desperation on her part. And she keeps on doing it. You know, immediately to my mind, we're told in connection with the great faith that we saw that Elijah had. Remember James chapter 5, I think it starts with verse 13 in that neighborhood, where we're being instructed, this is how you pray. All right. And it says, as an example, remember Elijah who prayed. And we know that when he prayed for it to rain again, it was 7 times. You know that, right? He's on the side of the mountain. It hadn't rained for better than 3 years, and he's praying. He prays, Lord, send the rain. And then he sends a servant up to the top to look for evidence. And he didn't see any, so he comes back down. I didn't see any. So he prays again, and again, and again, and again, 7 times, 7 times. And he just doesn't stop until it rains. And then the lesson is, it says, the effectual fervent prayer of a righteous man avails much. Well, in the word effectual, we think of effect like it's going to create an effect, but the word is actually the working the active, the working. It's the same idea of keep asking, keep knocking, keep seeking. And this what this woman is doing. She's a living example of that. It is, I say, a demonstration of her great faith, which Jesus will commend her for here at the end. Because understand, a little faith would ask, but a little faith would then be discouraged after Jesus ignored and walked away, you see. Great faith can have Jesus ignore you seemingly, understand? Because he knew what he was going to do. So let's don't be confused about that. He saw the faith of this woman, and you know what? It was a chance to teach his disciples something that they didn't know. And also, by extension, to teach us something as well. So he didn't say anything, but she's shouting at them. So Jesus answered, verse 24, and he said, look, I was only sent to the lost sheep of the house of Israel. So that's not ignoring her, that's no. Right? Is she discouraged? Is she dissuaded? Well, we'll find out in the next verse, but I want you to understand, you continue when you have great faith. What's her faith? You know, I'm mindful of that you must first believe that God is and that he's a rewarder of those who diligently seek him, you see. So in this way, this woman is showing she believes that he will give her what she wants so strongly that in the face of what would seem to be counter evidence, Jesus walks on and ignores her. And then he turns around and he tells her no. Her faith is great. She knows who he is. That's what she's banking on, and that's why she won't quit. So he told her basically, no, I was only sent to the lost sheep of the house of Israel, verse 25. And she began to bow down before him and saying, Lord, help me, in desperation. She just keeps on. Look, this is prayer. You understand that? Who's she talking to? It's prayer. She's talking to the Lord. And she's demonstrating this. She's just worshiping him. Why? Because everything feels so good. Now, understand this moves the Lord's heart. In the midst of it, all in the midst of all of that. She won't be dissuaded. Nothing is going to deter her. She believes that the Lord will bless her so much that she can't be dissuaded. She can't be disheartened, discouraged. She just keeps seeking him. She bowed down and she worshiped him. Lord, help me. And you know, it's not like she could demand it. She didn't demand justice. Have mercy on me. And that's an issue that came up a little bit last week. That idea, look, is any of us who see things rightly know it's all mercy. If we got what we deserved, we would just be dead. We would be a heap of ashes. That's what we all earned. And all of the love, all of the forgiveness, every single blessing is mercy, and it is grace that we should have the Lord. So, verse 26, he answered and he said, look, it's not good to take the children's bread and throw it to the dogs. Please put yourself in her position. What did Jesus just do? Well, he called her a dog. Now, it would be so easy to get offended at something like that. Have you ever had that experience? Look, I've talked to many, many people who have. Even spoke to someone last week who mentioned a few, actually two someones now that I think of it, that mentioned a few grievances, and it always comes up. It's especially around, it seems to come up when it involves going to church. And so people generally will have a story. Well, here's the problem with church, you know. So-and-so did such and such, and I've been ignored, and I haven't been treated well. It's easy, isn't it? It's easy. I'm reminded of what Jesus said to John. You know, John the Baptist knew who Jesus was. He declared who he was. God the Father told him, the one that you see the Holy Spirit descend on in the form of a dove, and it rests upon him, understand this is the Christ. He knew. And yet, I'm sure he believed that the Messiah was coming to restore Israel. And he, like everyone else at that time, did not understand he had come to give his life up, that he had come to be cruelly abused, tortured, and murdered, to forgive our sins and bear those stripes to heal us all of our infirmities. So he wasn't looking for that. So when he was thrown into prison, and he doesn't see it. So, he sends a messenger to ask Jesus, are you the Messiah, or should we look for someone else? And Jesus tells him plainly, I think, yeah, I probably made a note. Or maybe I didn't. I wanted to say maybe that was in around Matthew 11. But anyway, Jesus said, you tell him what you've seen and heard. You tell him that I'm healing the sick, that I'm casting out demons, that I'm making the lame to walk. And then he adds something very interesting at the end of it. He said, and blessed is he who's not offended in me. Now that's an offense. It's a stumbling block for many, that they were looking for someone to set them up in a position of power. And yet he had come to die, that he was going to bear a curse. Well, it's the same, isn't she blessed that she's not offended in him? She doesn't understand what he's doing at all. The only thing she's anchoring her hope in is who he is and what he's like. This is the Messiah. And I know, it'll be revealed here in a moment. When he says it's not good to take children's bread and throw it to the dogs, he's calling her a dog. But she can't be put off by that. You know, that's one of the functions, I think, of being tested and tried. You know, it kills your pride, doesn't it? It does. It really, really does. I mean, I've been in a place where I could not do for myself simple tasks like eat or use the bathroom by myself. And I'll tell you, that'll make a train wreck of that lie of pride that we all have some of. So she just doesn't have it. She can't be offended by it. You know, she's just focused on one thing. This is the Lord. He has what I'm looking for, and I really believe that he will give it to me. And it doesn't matter what counter evidence is coming her way. It doesn't matter that he passed by and ignored her. She's not upset about that. She's not dissuaded. She's not deterred. And the fact that he said, no, I've only come to the lost sheep of the house of Israel. And she's still not deterred. Instead, she worshiped, Lord, please. And then he says basically that you're a dog. And look at her response. It's so beautiful. Verse 27. But she said, yes, Lord. Yeah, that's right. And look, we can all say it. That's not who we are. We are, in fact, his children, beloved of him before the foundation of the world, intended to spend all eternity in glory, enjoying his presence. That's who we are. But who we are in Adam when we're born, it's so much. A dog is lower than a human, and we love our dogs, but they're not humans. In fact, that we're not as high as that compared to God. So she's not offended. Yet she just says, yes, Lord, you're right. That's right. That's my position. I see it. I don't stand in a place where I'm demanding what is rightfully mine. No, I recognize it will be a mercy. It will be grace. It will just be favor from you. So she can't be offended by it. But look what she says, yes, Lord, what you said, that's right. But even the dogs feed on the crumbs which fall from their master's table. And it reminds me of what, David said he would be content if he could just be a doorman in God's house. And the prodigal son, if you'll remember, when he came back to his dad, before he did, what he was thinking is the servants in my father's house are better off than I am now. And she's right. I mean, she knows that the Lord loves her. And she believes it so strongly that even, frankly, his overt attempts, and he's doing it on purpose, as an object lesson to his disciples and frankly to us. He knew this woman's faith, or he would not have used that moment to take that lamp and put it up on a lampstand. It was time to shine. And this woman had something to teach those disciples that even though they were children of Israel, that they didn't understand. And she was demonstrating such a beautiful faith. And that's how, if we walked out right now with our little flashlights on our smartphones, they're not that bright. We could go outside right now and shine them, and it wouldn't be that bright because the sun is out. When it's dark, though, you could see it for miles and miles, that light that you would emit. Isn't it that way? When everything's going right, it just doesn't shine that brightly. The example of our faith, it doesn't shine that brightly. In order for God to illumine that for someone, it is necessary for conditions to become dark. And so he does that, and he's very careful about when and how, very careful. But he sees this woman, and he uses this moment to raise her up, and even across 2,000 years, she's still speaking to you and to me. And she's saying, I know how good you are, Lord. I know I would be so content just to be a dog under your table. I know I would be loved and well fed. And then Jesus said to her, verse 28, "O woman, your faith is great. Be it unto you even as you wish." Now, he doesn't say that very much. I mean, even to his disciples, frankly, often he had to chide them for saying, "You have little faith. You have such little faith." But here, this woman, she has great faith. And that's how it is expressed. So it's the same for us, isn't it? I won't get into it too much, but I will say it's at least intrigued me. Notice, this woman's faith has an impact on her daughter's situation. Now, there are times you can read through the Bible and see it. There are times where Jesus or the disciples would look and see that a person has faith and say, as according to your faith, be it unto you. So that's the person themselves that are going. But in the case of the paralyzed young man that they lowered down through the roof in Mark, when Jesus looked, he saw their faith. The faith of his friends had something to do with how it went with him, you see. And in this case, it's the same way, and I think there's something to that. Our faith has an impact then on others. It just does. So that is a blessing. But I don't know how to escape it. It seems like the Lord is saying it over and over again in so many places that this is how faith operates. You just anchor that in me. You trust me. Trust who I am. I'm going to do what I said I'm going to do. I will never, ever fail. So, knock and keep knocking. Ask and keep asking. Seek and keep seeking. You just keep trusting me. Follow this example. This is an example of great faith. This is what great faith looks like. It presses through. It cannot be dissuaded. It cannot be extinguished. It will not be turned back, you see. It has some grit. And two, don't you think that it pleases the Lord to give the answer that he wants anyway? Don't you think that blesses him? Well, I mean, as we follow in that example, we give him that chance, and that's a blessing to him. Hallelujah.